All right, you guys, and it's time for our top 10 of 2020. It was definitely a terrible year, but at least the music was good. So what me and Caroline are going to do is talk about the albums that are the best. And if you go to a lot of different music reviewers, they are saying, "Oh, this are top 10 or top 20 albums that I like," and make sure they say like, "Oh, this is just my opinion." But we're here to say no. This is factually the top 10 best albums that we heard in 2020.
Yes.
So, Caroline, before you go first, how was this year for music to you?
Honestly, I remember very little of what happened, not just musically, but at all this
Mm-hmm.
year. So I had to look back at my notes. I looked back at the track listings. I re-listened to some albums, and it was like, whoa, this happened this year. But it wasn't terrible. There was just a lot of like solid stuff. Nothing spectacular. Nothing. Well, nothing too bad, but.
All right, let's get it started, Caroline. What is your number 10?
Number 10 for me is the Kid Cudi album.
Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon 3, actually, you
Yes.
really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm kind of sad that it ended up at the bottom of the list, but I still really liked it.
I didn't realize that you liked it that much. Did you finally get high and listen to it and realize the genius of his work? Or
No.
okay, well, and maybe that's why it's so low. You don't have much to say about it, but you just remember that it didn't bother you.
I remember that it was like refreshing that the content of the songs was more than just like what I was expecting them to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the pacing being off and there being like a number of songs that I just really didn't like for one reason or another.
Okay. What's number 9 then for you?
My number 9 is The Strokes, The New Abnormal.
Okay, yeah, this is that New York garage rock that I know you're kind of into, indie rock or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So why did it come on your list at all? Number 9, I should say.
This album was made for me. It just checks all of my boxes of like very 80s, very like the singer's like voice, like all of these different things that I was just, it was a very me album.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What is number 8?
Number 8, surprisingly so low. The Mountain Goats, Getting Into Knives.
Wow, last year's album, which was the one before the one that came out earlier this year,
Mm-hmm.
you really enjoyed. Now, why
Yeah.
is this one a little bit lower?
There wasn't anything very memorable for me about it. And with the Mountain Goats, I could just like look at like the album cover and I know every single song that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it grew on me the more I listened to it, but it was still just weak compared to what I was expecting. And it was disappointing in that way.
Yeah, but it was good enough to make one of the best
Yeah.
albums you heard this year. So,
Oh, yeah.
number 7, what you got?
Number 7, I have Grandson, Death of an Optimist.
Grandson. What we said on the podcast when we reviewed it before is the 21 Pilots imitator. But that doesn't phase you none. So tell us more about it.
This was another one that just, I remember like it just was very me. It didn't take me long to realize that like I love this album.
Mm-hmm.
I just jived with it real quick.
I think because it's really gloomy and what you get from the title alone as well, which has a really sadistic way of looking at life. And it's right up your alley. And of course, you said he has great hair.
Oh, he has great hair.
Kinda...
That alone means he's going on the top 10 list.
What's number 6 then?
Number 6 is Boston Manor, Glue, which I forgot about how much I liked this album.
You liked it so much you convinced me to raise my rating. I was going to give it an average rating, but then just listening to you alone, you were like, okay, this album, they did do everything correctly.
Yeah.
And it's your first time hearing the group. Anything else you want to say about this?
It was like another album. I did not have to get far into it to know that I knew I was going to enjoy the whole experience. It just hit me in a very strange place. I like communed with it.
Okay. Did you decide to go back to their earlier stuff now? Or are you a fan of this?
No, I didn't, because I forgot how much I liked them until I was like reviewing my notes and going back through to refresh my memory of the year.
Well, you have the chance now, or you can just listen to Glue again.
That's true.
We're now into the top 5. What's your number 5?
Okay, so number 5 is again the Mountain Goats, but this one is the Songs for Pierre Chauvin. I think that was the name of it.
And I was gonna say, if you're gonna put the Getting in the Knives there, I didn't think this was gonna make the list at all. But somehow this minimalistic record
I
did something
know.
for you. No bias here, of course.
No. And I never liked their like lo-fi stuff that like was obviously just him recording himself with like a guitar on a cassette in his like bedroom or whatever. But as I was like going back through my notes and I was looking at the song titles, I realized that like I had all of these songs stuck in my head for like weeks. Like, I don't know, they just really stuck with me. And I think that there was something about the album that just came out at the right time during the pandemic and the right time during just like a bunch of stuff going on in my life that it was what I needed. And I didn't even realize that.
Okay. So let it be a lesson to you guys. Make sure you do more than one album a year. And you could possibly make Caroline's list more than once. What is your number 4 then?
Number 4 is The Weeknd, After Hours.
All right.
Yeah.
You're not really a big fan of The Weeknd until now, right?
Yeah,
Is this the first one you heard?
I think.
Because yeah, I gonna honestly agree with you. Like this album has that retro synth sound that he's been gravitating towards, and a lot of the songs are really like depressing and gloomy, dark pop stuff as they call it. And I think it's actually a little bit better than the one he did a couple of years before this. But that's what I gotta say about it. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I loved almost every track. I didn't really get bored at any time. I love that there was like a mix of genres. I don't know, it was unexpected and it was really engaging. And I was very surprised. I was pleasantly surprised by that album.
Gotta always say pleasantly. Number 3, what you got?
Haley Williams, Petals for Armor.
Huh. You're
Yeah, I know.
shocking me on these lists. I did not remember you liking this that much, but okay.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really remember you hating it either, but
Yeah.
as a person that wasn't really big into Paramore, or were you?
No.
Okay,
I don't think I ever listened to them.
So how did this one work for you then?
This was another album that like I had some of these songs stuck in my head for weeks, even ones that like I actively did not like. They were just like stuck in my head, and I always take that as a good sign that if art sticks with you, then it's like it's good art. And I just remember it being very I don't know, I thought it was like complex. There was a lot going on. It was very clearly a reflection of like difficult times going on in her life.
Number 2.
All right, number 2 is Childish Gambino, 3/15/20.
I think I remember it came out in one of those albums that was a surprise release.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it's I think it's actually now that I understand that he's not going to be doing like the alternative hip hop that he was doing on the previous stuff. He switched to more R&B. I expected that on this record, and you did get some rap songs on there, I do believe, right? So he kind of like gave you some of the old and new, and I thought it was a really good combination.
Yeah, exactly. Like it just had so much going on. Every song had just so much to it, and it all worked so well together. And the only reason it's not my number 1 is there were like 1 or 2 or 3 songs that like just didn't do it for me. And if for it to be like my number 1 album, I have to love every song. This was the first time I listened to one of his albums, and like I knew I had heard all of the hype, and like I get it.
Yeah, I definitely glad you enjoyed it. Maybe you'll start watching the show Atlanta, and we can talk about that.
Oh, I forgot that. Yeah.
And drum roll, please, everybody. Caroline's number 1 album of 2020 is
Run the Jewels, RTJ4.
Nice.
Yeah, and I didn't even remember that I had a Praise This, and this was my 1 Praise This in 2020.
Yeah.
It was just great. Like the lyrics were just like content rich and meaningful and powerful, and just everything about it worked together so perfectly that like if it's my only Praise This, obviously it's number 1.
Obviously, yes. All right, that's a good list. With that, it's time for my top 10 of 2020. So, for my list, the same thing that Caroline said in a way. You just basically look at the albums that really meant a lot to me, and then you just pick which albums had the least amount of throwaway tracks,
Mm-hmm.
and then that gets kind of moved up further on the list. And at the same time, it's all about the meaning of the album and how it reflects my life, or if it's actually a classic record as well. Coming at number 10, I got Pears with their self-titled third album. And they're continuing that trademark melodic hardcore pop punk sound that they've been doing for the previous records. I would say their sounds like a cross between the Descendants and the Vandals. I really liked their last album, Green Star, which came out in, I think, 2016. But I think this album is one that was actually better because it actually made my list. And aside from that chaotic punk rock that they do, the lyrics on this album are a little bit poetic and witty at the same time, dealing with like poignant topics about loneliness, isolation, being an adolescent, self-deprecation, and of course, inevitable thing that we all have to go through, getting older. Number 9, I got the Suicide Machines with their album Revolution Spring, and they are a Detroit ska punk band, a four-piece, and this is their first album in 15 years, and they pick it up where they left off with a fantastic mixture of energetic third wave ska and splashed with aggressive hardcore. Do you remember us reviewing this one? Um,
No.
Jay Navarro, his lyrics show like a bit of maturity and are very personal. He got songs like "Awkward Always" and "Trapped in the Bomb," but they still talk about social issues like the song about police brutality, that "Bully in Blue." They talk about the Detroit water problem.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, Flint hostage crisis, and of course, hair addiction on that song "Black Tar Halo." So yeah, the album has a lot of dark topics, but all in all, the music is fun all around. Coming in at number 8, I have Nas with his album King's Disease. It's another great album from the Queensbridge rapper with conscious lyrics about growing up, his relationship with women and fame, and of course, treating black women better and other Afrocentric topics that he deals with. Got a song on there called Till the War is Won, another song called Ultra Black. It's produced by Hit Boy, which he's done a great job of creating those nostalgic, modernized East Coast hip hop beats, and all the guest stars on there, including like Anderson .Paak, Big Sean, and even the reunion of The Firm, the hip hop group from the '90s, that mafioso rap that got him, AZ, Foxy Brown on there. We get that surprise track on there, Dr. Dre at the end of that track. So, yeah, it's way better than his last album, Nasir, that came out a couple years ago. That was like too short for me, like only 6 tracks, 7 tracks, something like that. But this one was great. Number 7, I got the Bomb Pops with the album Death in Venice Beach. So I got honest to say that Fat Records was like on a roll by March for me because it's like the third album by that label that made my list. It's like catchy, poppy skate punk. Both singers, Polly and Jen, have something about their voices. They're really smooth and soothing, energetic vocal harmonies. The lyrics are a bit darker than the last album, which made my list as well. But they got topics about alcoholism on a track called Can't Come Clean. As we talked about in the review, Polly's got that song about how she's struggling with diabetes called Double Arrows Down. So I like that they're maturing in their lyrics, but at the same time, they're keeping to their roots with their like skate punk sound. And I think Jen sings a little bit more on this album, lead vocals, than Polly, but the ladies trade off their singing duties very well, and they do it quite often. All right, so this one, number 6, is a band called Dog Leg, and the album is called Melee. And they are another Detroit band, and we never got to review this album because we got too many albums that came out at the time of its release. And even more importantly, I never heard of them before.
Mm.
Actually, a video came up on my YouTube one day of them, and I watched it and found out that this is their actual first album. And it's an amazing debut full of blistering melodic post-hardcore as well as some emo stuff in there. So if I want to give you an idea of what they sound like, it's like kind of reminds me of like Fugazi or Rites of Spring, or maybe like even a newer band like Pup. So lyrics are like emotional or emo as the kids are saying, but it's angsty and it's not too bitter and romantic at the same time. Plenty of yelling backing vocals here and there and aggressive vocals from the lead singer. It's a very raw production as well, which like I think helps capture the band's intensity. Number 5, I got Gorillaz in their album called Song Machine Season 1. Strange Times. And I think, like I said in the review, it's a vast improvement from their basic previous album, Now. And it's on par with the album before that called Humans, but I think it's better since it's shorter and tighter in its production. They do what they always do with their infectious electro pop, alternative, hip hop funk you'd expect, but I think every song matches the featured artist's style really well, which I said in the review. It's like Strange Times, it's like this gothic, like synth pop song. Got Robert Smith from The Cure. The song The Pink Phantom, it's got psychedelic pianos, and Elton John's on that one. That song Pac-Man is like a hip hop funk tune with Schoolboy Q, etc., etc. And I think like the fans will like it, and I think it'll even impress new listeners as well, because there's going to be something on there for everybody to enjoy. Number 4, got Deftones with their album called Ohms. And I think this album captures the band's signature melodic, metallic, alternative metal sound, crossed with like shoegaze rock, little synth 80s pop that they've been always doing. They got those melodic riffs on tracks like Genesis and The Link is Dead, which are some of my favorite songs on the album. They got some groove and bass tabs throughout. I can think of a song called The Spell of Mathematics and a song called Ceremony. So I remember you didn't get a chance to hear this one, but if you're into that screaming alternative metal that is not so new metal, that when you think of like, Jenko jeans and ball chain necklaces and like rapping over metal, stuff like that, Deftones have come out of that trend and they are still killing it 20 plus years later. Number 3, got Thundercat with It Is What It Is. And it's another solid jazz fusion alternative R&B record from the legendary singer/bassist. I think it's a perfect blend of psychedelic jazz tronica and hip-hop as well, with the great utilization of the features. Steve Lacy, Childish Gambino, Ty Dolla $ign. Great songs like Black Walls, I Love Lewis Cole, The King of Hills. I think its album will be pleasing to both hipster jazz fans as well as older people that were pretty much alive back when it was invented. So if you're not playing this album during a barbecue, you're fucking up, I should honestly say right now, or a cookout. I think for like a jazz record, it may sound great if you're on heroin, but don't quote me on that. And above all, don't do heroin. Number 2, I got Code Orange with their album Underneath. One of my praises ratings. And I saw these guys open for Hatebreed a few years ago. Wasn't impressed, but now I see the genius of their ways. They perfectly combine industrial metal with alternative metal, classic rock, glitchy ambient samples. They're all putting all that in the melting pot. If you remember when we reviewed that album, the album is both brutal and sonically soothing at the same time. Remember that first song, Swallow the Rabbit Hole, came on and it's just like an eruption of like, noise and like screaming hardcore vocals and blast beats. And then they got like rock songs that come on there throughout. It shows that the band's ability to blend several metalcore, hard rock, and gloomy pianos all in one song at the same time. All right. So, with no surprise, if you recall my number 1 album on my top 10 list back in 2017, obviously this group is going to make my number 1 again. And that is Run the Jewels 4, RTJ4, as you want to call it. And I expected this to be better than the last album, and they exceeded that easily. Killer Mike and LP, as Caroline was saying in her thing, they once again show that they're lyrical geniuses, as they are both clever and enlightening with their provocative and provoking lyrics, like on the song Never Look Back, Walking in the Snow. They push the boundaries with like the features, like 2 Chainz. He had that entertaining verse on Out of Sight. Pharrell and Zach De La Rocha on that song Just. And I remember you were saying Mavis Staples and Josh Holmes on that experimental song Pull the Pin was one of your favorite songs of the album.
Yeah.
The way they were able to combine the 3 of them and mesh out a sound that you weren't expecting was so amazing. They got the anger and frustration in the lyrics, and it comes off really well, but not too preachy. And of course, LP, like the way he is just like a mathematical genius and is innovative master at creating like those samples that he uses as well, and those unique beats that he does. And I think we're so blessed that these 2 MCs met and graced us with yet another record chock full of bangers. And that is my top 10 of 2020. So love to hear what you guys think of our lists and some of your favorite albums of the year. Put those in the comments below. And hopefully 2021 is just as eventful as this year has been.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations. You should reward yourself by hitting that subscribe button so you can get access to all our videos right when they come up. Also, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and make sure you put your comments in the comments below because people care about your opinion.